Welcome to Tea Dilly, where we cheer to educated, conservative conversation and values. My name is Christy McLaughlin, but you can call me Christy. Mainstream media, over the past 4 years, has used their platform to manipulate and propagandize the American people. They've attacked our president, referring to him as a bigot, a chauvinist, a misogynist, a xenophobe, and generally a dictator who's very Hitler-esque. However, it's gotten even worse in 2020 after the presidential elections, particularly given that the results are not complete yet, and it is not clear who the president-elect is. What the media has done is try to monopolize free thought. They try to control what Americans think by proclaiming that Vice President Joe Biden is the president-elect and to try to convince the American people that President Trump is a bully who can't accept the results of the election, rather than the fact that he's actually trying to await his constitutional legal allegations and legal challenges. The greatest accomplice to the media is social media, who is the biggest culprit of censorship of American voices, particularly conservative voices. They use third-party fact checkers that are not truly fact-checking. In fact, if you look into it, you'd notice that most of the posts that are fact-checked and censored are really opinion-based posts. They claim that they're fact-checking by providing context. But when they're providing context, they're actually attempting to change the narrative. It does not matter how factual the statement might be, or even if it's simply an allegation based on opinion. The censorship is particularly meant to monopolize the way people think in America. Here's an example. My older sister, she's in medical school. In her last year, she was studying really, really hard for her boards. She was completely underwater, had no idea what was going on in current events. She came back to me a couple days ago and said, Joe Biden won, right? She had no understanding of all the legal allegations, the legal challenges of voter fraud, or any possibilities that could turn out from this election still. And that's what the media wants. They want the majority of people who don't start digging deeper to just accept on face value what they tell you. They're feeding us lies and they don't care because that's how they have control of the country. With me today, I have Amanda Brilhante. She's one of my favorite people. She is on One American News Network. She's a news anchor there. You can see her there all the time. And we will be discussing what the media has to do with outcomes for presidential elections. Is it really just reporting the news, or are they interfering with the results of the election? Take a look. All right, I have Amanda Brilhante with me. Amanda, you work for One American News Network. What is it like right now reporting in such a charged climate of political chaos?
Well, Chrissy, as you know, One America News, the way we do it on the news side, it's a little bit more fact-based. So we're giving stories. So kind of luckily for me, we're moving from the chaos. But when it comes to seeing the chaos in its entirety, so when you're talking about Twitter, social media, investigative reports, I mean, it's a day-by-day process. We're all in this together, whether you're on the right side or the left side, and whatever your media source is, like we're all sitting here trying to get through this period together. So I more so feel like I'm just one of everybody else, even though I'm sitting there reporting on it and working with it. I'm like just sitting here trying to get through it day by day with everyone as well.
And that's exactly what I love so much about your reporting on One American News Network. It's all fact-based. It's very unbiased the way you report on the news. So when you see Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, NBC making statements that can be so biased and intentionally trying to convince the American people that Joe Biden is the current president-elect when there are no certified votes, votes are not being counted, and the fact that there are legal challenges out there that could change the results. What are your thoughts when you see other networks not reporting based on the news?
You know, it's funny you asked that question because just before I came on to speak with you, I actually saw a tweet from somebody else kind of pointing out that there's a sense that we kind of see things and we take it and run with it. We don't really look into what's going on below the surface. And so as media, it's our job to put information out there. And when you have headlines or news alerts, like my phone is always blowing up with alerts, and I have an Apple Watch that's always buzzing because there's an alert, and you see that and you see a headline and you see what they're saying. But it is also the responsibility of people to kind of do a little bit more digging. Whatever your preferred source of net like media is, whether you watch CNN or Fox or One American News or some other source, I think it's important to look a little bit deeper. So when it comes to the elections, I mean, legal wise, this isn't yet over. And so we see these projected results and we see what is being out there from the ballots that are counted. And we're seeing the idea of what these other networks are calling and what they're projecting is going to happen. But the key word there is projecting. And so whatever you believe from there is what you believe, but also I think it's important to note that there is more behind the scenes and more that still needs to happen before it's official, because it's not yet official. We still have some time here.
Definitely. And as you mentioned, we can't always accept the headlines on face value. That's why I think so many people feel that the media is a monopoly on thought. Because if you don't have the time to dig deeper, if you don't know to dig deeper, you accept the news based on what they're telling you. And so, why is One American News Network a great source to actually, really dig deeper into these hard hitting times?
Well, I mean, for One American News specifically, when you tune on, I can tell you that you're not just going to get stories that are strictly about the election. You're getting a little bit of everything. Like I worked last night and the stories I wrote, they're ranging from everything from international, national. So we're focusing on not only what's going on election wise and counting ballots, but also what's going on in your local towns and just different stories. So you're getting more news content. It's not so focused on the elections. But the idea of monopoly of thought in general, I think is really interesting. And I kind of want to go back to that just because in general, like you go onto Twitter, on Instagram, you go on the college campuses, which I know that you're very involved with. And there is always this kind of like idea of monopoly of thought. I mean, you friends of a feather flock together, like your social groups are probably going to have similar thoughts as you. And I think that in itself, like just kind of be aware of that. I mean, there's this world is huge. There's so many different people and cultures and ideas, and there's so much more information out there than what we're just seeing.
Absolutely. Um, when since you mentioned social media though, what is your experience when you're getting those pings, when you're getting all that information on your Apple Watch or you're getting all of these news blasts? Are they weighed a certain way? Do you see a pattern? Because so many people are alleging that the media is extremely biased, but just from a non-biased perspective, do you feel that there's a little bit of lopsided reporting when it comes to not just the election in general, anything political, anything current events related?
Yeah, I mean, just from like a human standpoint, like psychology standpoint, the point of headlines is to grab your attention. It's going to be something that you look at and you go, wait, this is interesting. Let me read about this. And so, usually, with that, there's some kind of emotion that it's bringing up as well, whether it's anger or fear. And I think that a lot of times headlines are kind of centered around that. Like, you don't get a headline about, well, sometimes you do, but not usually about this like happy story where like the other day I had a story on a kid who won a mullet contest and he was like below the age of 10 years old. And I can tell you my watch isn't over here vibrating, being like, kid wins mullet contest, like national votes. But like my watch is going to be over here and it's going to say like two murders and riots across the country. And then I read that because I'm like, ooh, that sounds scary and sad. And you see that on Twitter where it's a lot of the tweets that grab attention or end up trending are things that are going to be more emotional and get people to have some kind of reaction. It's kind of the way people work too. But I know that like from an unbiased perspective too, and trying to look at the alerts that I get, because I have alerts for all different kind of media content. I don't just focus on one thing because I do think it's important to have a range of information coming in. You'll notice trends. You'll notice the way that different networks headline different things, especially when it comes to politics. You'll see that, you know, a network that leans right or left is going to have headlines that go in their direction. And I know that like you've experienced this as well. I mean, you're very like well involved with politics, so you see this. And this goes for even the national content. You'll see those headlines that are like emotionally driven. And you know, the positive ones are nice too, or even the ones sometimes it's about climate change. Like CNN likes to have a lot of alerts that I get on my phone about things that are going on with our climate and our world and natural disasters. And same thing, those are written in a way to make you look and want to read more.
Right. And so we're both 25 years old. We actually, when
Yeah.
just for the audience to know, I was on Amanda's show in One American News Network as a guest to talk about my lawsuit with the Department of Education. And ever since then, her and I have developed a friendship and we bonded. We're both 25 years old. Let's look a little bit away from the just media perspective in general. How are you feeling right now with free speech, with this concept of indoctrination of any kind? It doesn't have to be political, that we have social policies that are trying to be implemented into this country right now. How do you feel as a young person? What do you think are the reactions of other young people, since you are from a media platform?
It's a lot of pressure. Like you said yourself, we're both 25. And when you look at the grand scheme of things, so we're relatively young. Like I have been saying I'm a baby in my industry for years now. And I mean, now I'm 25 and I still feel that way. There's people who have been doing this for years and years and years. But when it comes to the pressure of just being this age and having to worry about, I mean, cancel culture is a big thing. Like, or seeing your friends post about certain things and maybe not feeling like you can post about that for whatever reason, whether it's like a professional reason or a personal reason, and just any of that. And I think that people tend to forget. And sometimes it's not even like that you're not on their side. Like you can be on their side, they just might not know that. And I think that's the difficulties of not only being young and being so involved in social media, but also having that extra pressure. Like I have so many friends on social media that sometimes I wish I could be like, you guys can just like come and talk to me. Like media is media, you know, you have to be the person presenting information. But when it comes down to it, like, I mean, I hate cancel culture, to be honest. It's like that in itself, there's such a fear with that. And sometimes I'm worried, like, what if you say the wrong thing? And like, there's an MSNBC reporter who, I don't know if you've been on Twitter yet today. It's been trending because he accidentally cursed while on air because he thought he wasn't on air. And something like that, like, not only is he in media and then he did that and then he has to go and apologize, which, like, he's human. It
Right.
was just a mistake. But also there's just this extra pressure that, like, so for him he has all these other eyes on you, but then he has to worry about, well, what does that do for his career? And then when you worry about that not only professionally but personally, it's a lot to do at 25 too.
Absolutely. And I hate cancel culture as well. And I think cancel culture is one of the main blocks to the sharing of information. I truly feel that if there was less of this culture of we have to shun anything that is different than the way we think, then we
Hmm.
feel more free of sharing information and we wouldn't be so hesitant with fact checkers and everything like that to not just discuss our opinions and um, and maybe some allegations that have come up that aren't necessarily verified but might be. And I don't know, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think that the world is black and white. I think there's a lot of other colors in there. There's gray, red, blue, green, everything. I mean, it's a whole spectrum. Like, this isn't just one thing or the other. And when it comes to fact checkers, yeah, that's important. Like, there's certain things that, you know, it's just fact, it's information, it's out there. And to dispute it, you got to be careful. But when it comes to just talking about your opinions or your beliefs, there should be an ability to have a conversation, because just because someone may think or believe differently from you doesn't mean that that's not their truth. Like, that is what they believe and that is their truth. And you should be able to respect that. And you should be able to have conversations about it. You might learn something or they might learn something. But when you continuously butt heads and not have those conversations, you don't allow people to learn and grow and come together. I think a lot of people at the heart are morally good and they also are empathetic. And when it comes down to it, there's more similarities than I think there are dissimilarities, especially when it comes to, like, I mean, it's easy to talk about media because I work in news, but when I see these very sad headlines, like, at its core, like, it doesn't matter where you're coming from, your background. I'm pretty sure if you see that something happened to a young child, empathetically, you're going to feel something. You're going to feel sad. And I think that things like this, without realizing it, can bring you together instead of pull people apart. I think there's a lot of other issues that can bring people together instead of continuously bring them apart.
Right. And what do you think about the reporting of allegations? From one perspective, all scandals typically start as conspiracies. And the way allegations work is you have to allege something, and then when evidence and discovery and fact finding, whether in law or just in general, occurs, then you can verify that allegation. But right now, there seems to be a push away from reporting on allegations. On one side, perhaps it is because those allegations are coming so often that you can't possibly report on everything and verify it. But on the other hand, it seems that media does not want to look into these allegations and verify them. I am referring to the election with the voter fraud issues, but just in general, what are you thinking on that?
I think that's a little bit trickier than just because, like you said, there's so many allegations. Like, I mean, it is hard to keep up with everything. It's constant, it's just a constant coming in of information. But when it comes to choosing allegations to report on, your media content is going to make that decision, and you have to choose to look into it further or to seek out other sources as well. And I think that that's what's more important, is that you have that knowledge to know that you can probably look and find something that's going to either confirm or dispute what you're looking for. It's about the information you're looking for. If you go out seeking something specific, you can probably find it. And then you can go and find things that add to your case, or you can go and find things that maybe take away from your case and kind of look at it and go, well, what is this person saying? And do they have any base here? Do I agree or disagree as well? And is there any maybe truth to this as well?
Yeah, definitely. So, on a positive note, Amanda, you're 25. What are you looking forward to in the next few years as a young professional woman? What are you looking forward to in inspiring other young women that want to get involved? Maybe not perhaps in media, but just in general, involved in their community and, the sharing of information.
I'm sure that this is something that you and I could talk about for a very long
Yeah.
time, just because we're both in the same position. I mean, there is so much I'd want to share with other young women and just other young adults in general. I think that it's important. My biggest thing would be to keep trying, never give up. That's one of the biggest things. Like, you're going to hear a no, and you're going to feel down, and you're going to feel stressed out. And one of the things I've realized, like, now being in my mid 20s, but even coming up to this point, is you're being in your 20s is hard. Like,
Yep.
there are so many questions. Yeah. You go from being in college to all of a sudden you're out of college and you're figuring out, well, where do I live? Where do I go? What do I do as a career? Like, is this career right for me? Do I continue in here? Then all of a sudden you're 25 and you're like, oh my gosh, in 5 years I'm 30. Like, is that when things get real? And I would
Pressure's
just say,
on.
the pressure is on, but like, just, I think it's important to remember that there's people who are in the same boat as you, and to give yourself the patience and the grace to take that time to figure things out and to not beat yourself up over it. Like, we're all doing the same thing. We're all feeling pressure in different ways. And I'm sure somebody at some point you're going to cross paths and be like, oh my gosh, like, you're stressed out about this. So am I. And you gotta keep pushing forward. Like, things, there's bad days, there's good days, but keep just, living your life day by day. And even over the next 4 years, when it comes to like politics, I know that there's a lot of emotions involved with that. And same thing there. Like, every single morning, the birds are still gonna sing. You're still gonna wake up and live your life and make the most of it. And just to keep that in mind, regardless of what's going on. And for myself, I'm looking forward to the next 4 years. I feel like I have so much more growth, not even 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, all of it. Like, I know that I'm going to continue to grow as a person, and I'm excited for that. And I'm excited to hear about my friends' growth, and I'm excited to hear about your growth. Like, I know that we'll continue to be friends throughout the years. Yeah, it's just, being in our 20s is exciting because there's so much possibility. And there's
Right.
so much change we can do. Like, we're coming into the new generation of being ones that can be leaders and make changes, and keep that in mind too. What we do is going to impact someone else. Like, even if it's as simple as saying hi in a grocery store or getting involved in your community. It just, if you want to get involved, go and do that. Just go and make whatever changes you think are best for this world. Things will fall into place.
I love that. And I love that you said every morning the birds will still be singing. So keep it,
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen alike. Amanda, you've always been so impressive to me. You're such a brilliant,
Oh, thank you.
beautiful person, and I'm so proud of all the work you do. And thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate
Yeah, of course. I was excited to come on, and I'm sure
it.
that I'll be speaking with you again and to everybody else as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.